Welcome to the channel. Today we continue exploring the eastern side of Valletta. We're starting exactly where we left off. It's the hush of early morning, that fragile hour before the city stirs and the streets remember their rhythm. We're starting at the monument to Jean de Valette. He was the Grand Master of the Order of St. John during the Great Siege of 1565. After the Knights and the Maltese resisted the Ottoman forces, it was decided that a new fortified capital should be built, stronger, more organized, and better prepared. That city became Valletta. Standing here in the early morning silence, it feels fitting to begin with the man whose name the city carries. Without that siege, without that decision, this city might not exist in the form we know today. Just a short walk away is the Church of Our Lady of Victory, and this was the first building constructed in Valletta, laid down in 1566. It was built to commemorate victory in the Great Siege. In many ways, this small church marks the symbolic beginning of the city. This church is modest compared to larger churches in Valletta, but historically it holds deep importance. The city started here with gratitude, faith, and determination. This city isn't just built of walls and roads, it's built of time, resilience, and the lives that pass through it. Every stone here carries a memory, every street whispers stories shaped by centuries. Now we turn into Merchant Street. At this hour, it feels almost unrecognizable, as if the city is pausing for a quiet breath before the day begins. Walk slowly here because history isn't in museums alone, it's written into the very streets beneath our feet. Merchant Street has always been tied to trade and daily life. During the time of the Knights, it connected important auberges and warehouses. Under British rule, commerce continued to shape this area. Even today, that spirit of exchange still lingers in the air. It's a street where centuries of everyday life quietly overlap. If you haven't already, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to follow along with our journey through Malta. Merchant Street has a rich history. Planned in the 16th century when the city was built by the Knights of St. John, it quickly became one of the main arteries of urban life. For centuries, merchants, craftsmen, and travelers passed through here as goods from across the Mediterranean flowed into the city. Shops and markets made the street a lively hub that stayed important to locals even through wars and economic shifts. Over time it evolved, but its role as a center of everyday activity never truly disappeared. Today, Merchant Street still reflects that long tradition of trade, culture, and daily life. Merchant Street remains one of Valletta's most active streets, but right now it belongs to the quiet. This contrast, from silence to energy, is part of Valletta's rhythm. I can hear my own footsteps, it's completely quiet. But later in the day, this street fills with market stalls, cafes, voices, and movement. At night, the street comes alive with restaurants and glowing lights. Tables spill out onto the street as people enjoy the warm evening atmosphere. In the early morning, the tables are empty, chairs are stacked, and shutters are still closed. Merchant Street is one of the city's oldest and most important streets. It runs parallel to Republic Street and served as the second main commercial axis of the city. Many historic landmarks stand along this road, including the old university building. At the far end of the street, the road leads toward the historic fortress of Fort St. Elmo, overlooking the Grand Harbor. Now we turn into St. Juan Street. Like many streets in Valletta, it follows the city's strict grid pattern. The grid pattern is a design introduced by the Knights to allow air circulation and defensive visibility. But beyond its structure, this street tells a cultural story. Walking here early in the morning, it's easier to notice the mix of historic surroundings and everyday life. Small shops start to open their doors as the city slowly wakes up and locals pass through on their way to work or school. Families live in apartments above the cafes, and laundry often hangs between the stone buildings. Church bells still ring throughout the day to mark the hours. Even in a historic street like this, daily life continues much as it always has. St. Juan Street is one of the historic streets in Valletta, running parallel to the city's main commercial roads. The street was laid out in the 16th century when the city was planned by the Order of St. John after the Great Siege of 1565. Its name comes from St. John's Co-Cathedral, which stands along this street and is one of the most important landmarks in Malta. You're looking at an old view of St. Juan Street where the same limestone buildings and road have witnessed centuries of daily life in Valletta. Over time, houses and buildings were built along the street. Many of the buildings still show traditional Maltese limestone architecture with wooden balconies. Today, the street connects important cultural sites and remains a quieter route through the historic center of Valletta. Look at the wooden balconies, painted doors, and iron railings. Many of these buildings date back centuries, yet they remain lived in. This is one of those streets in Valletta that visitors should not miss. Walking here gives a real sense of the city's history, architecture, and everyday life. We're now approaching the end of the street. Up ahead, we'll reach the Grand Harbor viewpoint just below the lower Baraka Gardens. Shops slowly raise their shutters, a routine that has played out on these streets for decades. The scent of fresh bread drifts from nearby bakeries, a familiar part of Maltese mornings. Locals pass through the narrow streets on their way to work, greeting neighbors along the way. In these quiet hours, you can see how Valletta still lives much like a traditional Mediterranean city. In the early morning, Valletta feels much closer to its past. The limestone streets are quiet, just as they might have been when the Knights of St. John walked these same roads centuries ago. Honestly, I don't think there is a better time to come here than early in the morning. Look around, it's so quiet and peaceful. This is the Grand Harbor Hotel, one of the well-known hotels in Valletta. Many of its rooms offer stunning views over the Grand Harbor. If you're planning a stay in the city, this could be a great place to consider. I recommend staying in this area. It's close to many bars and restaurants, and you're within walking distance of most of Valletta's main sites. Across the harbor, the three cities begin to catch the first light of the day. The sun rises slowly behind them. From nearby viewpoints, the Grand Harbor slowly fills with ferries and fishing boats starting their day. It's a moment where Malta's long history and its daily rhythm meet in the calm of the morning. We're now headed toward St. Barbara Bastion, one of the quieter spots in Valletta and a scenic viewpoint overlooking the Grand Harbor. Coming into view is a red British-style telephone box, a small detail but a powerful reminder of Malta's more recent past under British rule. These red telephone boxes can be found in many parts across Malta. They were introduced during the period of British rule, which lasted from 1800 until Malta gained independence in 1964. For many decades, British rule influenced Malta's government, language, infrastructure, and everyday life. As of today, English remains one of the country's official languages and is widely spoken across the islands. This phone box is simple, almost nostalgic, a fragment of the 20th century standing within a 16th century city. Many of these telephone boxes are still kept today as part of Malta's historical heritage. They remind people of the long period when Malta was part of the British Empire. Even though most are no longer used as public phones, they remain a familiar feature of the streets. Today, they are preserved mainly as cultural symbols and popular photo spots for visitors. We are about to begin a longer walk along St. Barbara Bastion. This is one of the quieter edges of Valletta. From here, you also get beautiful open views over the Grand Harbor. This bastion was obviously designed for defense, thick limestone walls angled carefully to withstand artillery. But today it offers something different: peace. Take a look around and take in the details. The texture of the stone, the shadows cast by balconies, and the subtle slope of the street. This part of Valletta feels residential and reflective. Take a moment to appreciate the architecture without distraction. The Knights designed Valletta with precision. Straight streets, strategic corners, elevated viewpoints, everything had a purpose. However, centuries later, these defensive structures have become places to stroll, to pause, and to watch the harbor below. St. Barbara Bastion was built in the late 16th century by the Order of St. John as part of the city's original fortifications. The bastion was designed to protect Valletta from attacks coming from the direction of the Grand Harbor. During the period of British rule in Malta, the surrounding fortifications continued to be maintained as part of the island's strategic naval base. You'll notice some of the most beautiful doors and balconies in Valletta along this stretch of St. Barbara Bastion. Many of them feature traditional Maltese wooden balconies painted in bright colors. These details are a small but distinctive part of the city's historic architecture. Along this stretch, the buildings feel authentic and unpolished. Not every facade is restored perfectly. Not every balcony is symmetrical. Some buildings were damaged during World War II, others were modified during the British period, and today, modern renovations continue carefully within historic limits. This is a different side of Valletta, not dramatic and never crowded. Day or night, it's usually quiet and peaceful. It's one of those places that many visitors miss, but it's well worth the walk. As we reach the end of the road along St. Barbara Bastion, the city feels fully awake now. Shutters begin to open in the distance. The quiet is slowly fading. We're about to come to the end of this episode. Thank you for walking with me this morning and taking the time to explore these quiet streets together. If you enjoyed this slower exploration of Malta's streets, culture, and layered history, there's more to come. I'll see you in the next episode.